Hello everyone. In today's video we're setting up a new superpower. This will be a blast that damages enemies and objects and pushes them away. In order to do this we will need Unity, Game Creator, the Stats module, and the Action Pack 1 asset. I'm using some custom animations here as well that will be made available on Patreon together with the scene. Before we start, I would like to thank all of my Patreon supporters for the absolutely amazing support. So before we start setting up our scene, I am going to demonstrate what we're actually doing here. So as you can see, the moment I press 6, a sphere will activate, the animations will change, and it will blow everything away. Now the way we actually do this is if we actually go to our scene here and we inspect our character. Under powers I've added a blast, and this blast, if I activate this, basically consists of a sphere with two colliders. The first collider is a trigger that will automatically trigger a set of actions on objects that recognize this tag, so the tag is blast. And the second collider is an actual collider, so slightly smaller, and it will just push everything away that, well, that could possibly be affected basically. So yeah, really simple effect really. Now as you can see, we're gonna turn it on. It is a really simple effect. I'm using just a normal material. Now for everyone that uses URP or HDRP, I will have this VFX graph effect available as well, which obviously looks a lot better. Unfortunately, it does not work with the built-in render pipeline, so you will need URP or HDRP in order to use this effect. So this will be available on Patreon. Just like the custom animations I am using here, they will be available together with the scene on Patreon as well. So you will have tutorial scene, you will have VFX, so that's the VFX effect, and in animations you will have the animations and the state, so that will save you some time. Anyway, let's get back to setting up our scene. So in order to create this tutorial I will be using this scene. Now this is a scene I've used before simply because it has a couple of destroyables and a couple of characters. You do not need to use this scene, you do not need to use anything of the likes. All you need is a player and a character, and if you want to, destroy the destroyables as well, I have a couple of those. But yeah, none of those are necessary. Now, even though this is a new superpower, I will not be relying on the system I created for the previous powers. This will be completely standalone. The reason for that is I want to revamp the way the powers work at some point as well. So let's start off with our user interface actually. And this is not even necessary, it's just a really small visual effect. And once I activate a power, I want a sprite to be activated as well and deactivated if the power is up. So I'm going to simply duplicate these existing ones, drag them out of the way, and all of this, this is simply a simple sprite. It's the same image for both, so let me drag in a new one. There we go, blast. And the one we are by default going to have activated will be in gray, so it's the same white sprite but in gray. And the one that is by default going to be deactivated, which will turn on if the blast is turned on, is going to be the same one but white, and it's going to be one layer lower, so it will supersede. So that's what it looks like. So not necessary, just a really simple small effect. Now that's it for our UI. I'm going to keep this like this and we'll go to our player. Now, like I mentioned, if you haven't seen Superpowers 1 or 2, those tutorials, I'd recommend watching them because they're pretty cool, but you don't need to. You need is under player, you will need an empty where we will add those triggers to activate it. So these will not be it, these are for the other ones, but we're going to add the new trigger here as well. So just an empty, and we'll create another empty, and this will be our blast. And this is going to have a audio source. Now I'm not going to actually, oh sorry about that, I'm not actually going to set this up, but the way this works is by default it will do play on awake. This is going to be turned off, and once we activate the power it's going to be turned on and this audio file will play. So really easy to add a audio effect to your power as well. So pretty cool. Now let's add a trigger. And this trigger will be on enable. That's strange. On enable. There we go. And a set of conditions. Now I'm not going to set these up just yet. Our next step will actually be the sphere. So 3D object sphere. I'm going to drag this up and it's going to be on the player. Now I'm going to use a simple material here. Blast, there we go. And this blast material is a simple standard shader set to transparent blue with a low alpha value. So yeah, nothing exciting. If you are using HDRP and URP and are on Patreon, you will be able to find the nice visual effect. All you need to do is simply drag that on the sphere and turn the sphere, the mesh renderer, turn it to off, and you will have that effect, which obviously looks a lot better, but unfortunately it doesn't work with the default render pipeline. Anyway, let's get back to it. Now, this sphere will by default have a sphere collider, which is good. We're going to turn that into a trigger, and we're going to add another sphere collider here, which is not going to be a trigger, and it's going to be a bit smaller. Now you will see this inside. So the first one will be our trigger basically, and it will need a tag. So I'm going to use the tag blast. If you don't have that, which most likely you won't, just add a tag here and add blast with the little plus, and that's it. So yeah, I'm going to put blast on the sphere itself, so not on the power, just on the sphere, and that's it. Now we're going to set up our conditions. So these conditions will be for when our power activates. So this will be the really basic what you will need to do. Now we're going to start off with the condition for active. So if blast is active, then the actions will happen. You do not need any else, just these actions. I'm going to add a weight of 0.1. We're going to turn off our damage system. Now the reason for that is I don't want to take any damage, so by default I have unreceived shots, or if you have unreceived damage for melee, that works as well. And you will have an action that actually takes off health. Now that action is going to be turned off while we're in this animation. So it's this one, and we're going to turn that off. Reason for that is the animation is quite lengthy, and if we'd be able to receive damage in the meantime, we'd most likely be dead the moment we're done with our power. So yeah, that's no fun. Wouldn't be much of a superpower. I'm going to change state, and usually I just use an animation clip. This time I will actually use a state asset, and we're going to set one up. So if you go to animations, and we're going to create, or in any folder you want, going to create a Simple state. Now the reason I'm using a simple state rather than just dragging in the animation is because I do have transition animations. Now if you don't have any transition animations and you only have a loop, then just drag in this loop. But I have an enter clip and exit clip as well, just to make it look better, and it looks a lot more refined. So yeah, that's why I'm using that. Now before we continue with this, I'm actually going to make our sphere a lot smaller, so 0.1. And the reason for that is because it will look like the blast comes from within, and in this case it actually does, because it's so small that it's inside of our model. And let's drag in, let's rename this first to blast state. Cool, and let's go back to our conditions, drag this in. So transition time is 0.25, that's going to be important. But before we do anything else, I'm actually going to change a property, and the player will not be controllable while this happens. Reason for that is because we don't want you to fly around while you're actually using this animation. That's not the goal here. And yeah, that 0.25 is important because we are going to scale this sphere. There we go. To a value of 2. And we're going to do this in 0.25. So it will be in sync with the animation, which looks pretty nice. So to make it a bit more dramatic, I'm going to wait 2 seconds before it actually, the blast explodes, if you will. And we're going to paste this back in. And it's going to expand to 10. Now that's a decent radius. You can make this bigger or smaller, whatever you want. And we are going to use return objects. So basically it will explode and implode, which is pretty nice. Let's make sure that we actually add that sphere to all of this, because otherwise nothing will happen. There we go. Perfect. And we are going to duplicate this one again, and we're going to do -2. So it will, after implosion, just completely implode into the player again. It's not going to return this time. And time to arrive is going to be 0.25, the same as our transition for when we reset our state. There we go. We're going to reset our state, and we're going to set our blast, entire blast, to inactive. We're going to do the same with our icon, so our user interface. Blast active is going to be inactive again, and I know we didn't even activate it yet, but we'll do that in a bit. And let's duplicate this, and we are going to turn back on our damage system of our player. So we need to make sure we can take damage again, otherwise this would be a god mode power, and that's not what we want. Wait, 0.5, and then our player is controllable again. There we go. So we have our full route of actions here. So yeah, pretty nice. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to set up the trigger that actually activates all of this, which is going to be a simple key down. I'm going to use keypad 6 because I'm not using that for anything, and we're going to add a condition. And this condition will be based on an attribute, so our mana. I'm going to use percentage here, but if you want a set value to use it, that's completely fine as well. So just use value is greater or equal. I'm going to use percentage here. I'm going to use 80%. So no matter how much mana we have, this is a powerful power. It will always use 0.8. Again, completely optional. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want. Now, once we do that, we're going to activate our blast. We're going to activate our icon of our blast, and that's just for visuals. And we are going to subtract 80 mana. Quite a lot, but yeah, it's a powerful power, so it should use quite a lot. And yeah, in essence, that is, let's do subtract first. In essence, that's really it for activating all of this, but now we still need the other things in our environment to react to this. Now I'm going to start off with these crates here, so I'm just going to pick one. Now these crates are from my destroyables tutorial. If you haven't seen that, it's worth looking into. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a trigger. On tag enter, and I'm going to use a set of actions. There's one more I need. Where is it? General. It's not general. It's object. Yeah, enable component. So this is going to be turned off. Destroyed is going to be turned on. And our crate box collider is going to be turned off. There we go. So yeah, this is for destroyables. Now if you don't have any destroyables and you don't want to, you can completely skip this. I'm going to use the destroyables first just to demonstrate how this works, and then we're going to go over to our player. Now this one, I'm not going to repeat the same steps. I'm simply going to remove the others. I'm going to remove those as well. And I'm just going to have one crate here, and I'm going to, well, let's make sure it works first. So make sure the tag is set to blast. I'm going to hit play and actually see if this works. I still had that turned on, that's okay. And let's recharge it until we're at 80%. I have no idea how much that exactly is. I'm just gonna spam 6 here. Oh, there we go. Already there. And yeah, that works just fine. Cool. Now that I know it works, I'm going to duplicate them. So there we go. And let's duplicate these as well. And I'm going to drag those over. Now I'm dragging those over because it's a bit more dramatic if stuff in the environment breaks as well. Not because it's necessary. Cool. Now I'm only going to do our enemy AI guard here. You will know how it works once you set it up once. So let's add a trigger, or trigger behavior. It's going to use the same on tag enter, and it's our blast. And for this one, we are going to basically just ragdoll. I'm going to add a set of actions here. And we're going to, let's take off the health first. So health, subtract, and I'm going to take off 50. It's just a random value, you can use whatever you want. Now unfortunately Invoker won't work here, so we need to use game object, because invoker is actually the blast itself, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that won't work. So we need to drag in our character here. Let's ragdoll, and same here, need to do a character. We're not going to auto recover, we're just going to keep it at ragdoll. Wait, let's do 3 seconds, and if I drag in that character first, this will go a bit faster. Make sure you drag in the character itself, not a parent, and then duplicate this one, and we're going to recover after 3 seconds. And yeah, that's it. That's all you need to do. Now this character will be affected by the blast as well. And obviously you can do this with any object in the environment you want. You just need to make sure it can be affected by the tag blast. Now I'll be using the same tag for other powers as well to have a similar type of effect. So it's a nice way to do things. So let's actually hit play. And I still forgot to turn that off. That's okay. Let's do that again. Let's make sure it's off. And I'm actually going to add something else as well. So just temporarily in my camera motor, I'm going to, oh, I still had that turned on. Going to turn on allow zoom, just so I can zoom out a bit, just to show the impact of the power. So that's better. Let's do that again. Cool, I'm going to cheat here, so I'm going to use what I had in my skill tree tutorial to have mana regenerate a bit faster. And let's fly over. There we go. Now let's make sure our friend sees us. And there we go. Completely functional. So it takes him a while to get back up. But yeah, that's pretty cool actually. So yeah, that's the power, and yeah, it's, as you can see, we're not taking any damage while we're using it. Blast him away, and yeah, pretty cool. So that's it really. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.